There is some early research in my country, and I think certainly in the United States, suggesting that the continual drifting away from Christian faith is finally slowing, and that there may be a reversal amongst younger people now, more people coming back. You recently wrote of Professor Jordan Peterson as a man who has, and I'm quoting here, single-handedly galvanized numerous young people into serious engagement with Scripture and the Christian faith.
I mean, anecdotally, I can definitely attest to that. I literally just in my hometown at a Christmas party, I met a young man who's a very passionate, devout Catholic now, but he says it was Peterson who got him in the door a few years ago. And, he had a very complicated, non-religious background, but then Peterson got him reading the Bible. And so now, here he is. So, I do have hope that, through figures like Peterson and maybe somewhat Tom Holland in the UK, kind of trends that Justin Brierley talks about in his book, I have hope that there's some revival around the corner. Now these things go up and down, there's seasons to them. But I live in hope.
I think you and I would be keen for people to take that next step and to be reached for faith or by faith, but it's not happening so well out of the churches today. Are they missing something? Where are they getting it wrong? Or am I misunderstanding them? Maybe many of them are getting it right.
That's a good question. Of course, Peterson did put out this video as a message to the churches where he was trying to sort of give advice of what they could change, what they could do differently. And not all of it was bad advice per se, but I do feel like Peterson perhaps doesn't understand the church as well as he could. And the church actually has had its figures and its phases and people writing books and conferences and stuff like that, even specifically things designed to appeal to men. I think you see that especially in evangelicalism, which has always kind of tried to pride itself on engaging the culture, understanding the times, all that stuff. So, in a way, you can even find kind of analogs to Peterson in evangelical world. But I think a large part of Peterson's appeal was the very fact that he was an outsider. And so obviously that's not something, by definition, that's not something the church can replicate. That's not something any pastor can replicate. The pastor is who he is, and Peterson is who he is. And so, in a way, I think you kind of need, for some people, they need a figure like Peterson to be a kind of pre-evangelion, to be a gateway drug, so to speak, is a less fancy way of putting that, gets them in the door. But then I think happily, what does happen in many cases is that then those young people do begin seriously looking at churches, and they do find a pastor or a priest or somebody who can guide them along past Peterson. And then they look back and they're grateful for Peterson. They see what he did for them. But now they understand really better than he does, and they hope that now he can follow them.
Interestingly, you make that comment that that young man found Jordan Peterson was the gateway to him finding his own personal faith. He wasn't the person who nailed it for him. And I think that raises the interesting question about where Jordan Peterson really fits.
Yeah, I agree. And I think Peterson is wonderful at encouraging people to take responsibility, carry your cross up the goddamn hill, all that. But he's missing, he doesn't grasp the nettle of the gospel at the end of the day. And that's the missing ingredient, because I think when Peterson sees Christ on the cross, he sees the perfect man. He sees the archetypal, tragic human tragedy, right? And he believes that's something that we should strive to imitate. But of course, the thing about Jesus on the cross is that it wasn't just the perfect man on the cross, it was God on the cross. It was God reaching down to man. And Peterson struggles to see the difference between man reaching towards the divine and the divine reaching down to man. I think that really came out in his discussion with Richard Dawkins. So that's something I hope that Peterson realizes for himself, and it may take some more time. I don't think he's really tumbled to it yet. But the young people who got in the church door through him and then kept going, they are the ones who now have grasped that nettle of the gospel, and now I hope he follows them.